Today's card ideas are an awesome way to use up some of your designer paper, which you're probably hoarding in your closet, and even some of your paper scraps. They're quick and easy to create. I have tons of different ideas and layouts to share with you. Let me show them to you. First, I want to share my designs with you that I've already created, and then we're going to create one of these together. So what we're looking at today are panel cards made with designer papers. Now remember, you can use cardstock, you can use other things besides designer papers, but mine all feature designer papers here. So when you look at something like this, you may or may not realize making these panel cards can take a decent amount of measuring and cutting precisely to get your borders all correct. But the one I'm going to show you here in a little bit does not take that. So if you struggle with measuring, stick around. Hopefully today's card will help you a little bit. So here we have, I created a 1-panel card. I created some 2-panel cards, some 3 and some 4-panel cards. So we'll take a look at them really quickly. But I've created some that are very simple, that are just a piece of designer paper or several pieces of designer paper without any matting behind them. I also have created some with the mats behind to step them up a little bit. If you want the measurements for these cards, what you can do is click on the link in the video description below. It will take you to my website with all of the information on these cards. But here you can see just a really simple one with 1 panel. Here's one I created with 2 panels, just a little bit stepped up. Now I have another 2-panel card here that is vertical. Now this one is actually a gatefold card that opens in the center, but both of these, as you can see, are 2-panel cards. The tags that I added on top of these, with the exception of this one, I was needing to make these up fairly quickly, needed some nice sentiments without spending the time on it. So I pulled out my favorite tackle box with my mini messages tags, and most of these I have pulled out of here. And actually, I'll go ahead and grab this one, which I want to use on the card we're going to make here in just a second. So a 1-panel card, some 2-panel cards. Now let's look at, I have a couple of 3-panel cards. So here's one that is vertical. Here's one that's horizontal. Here I kept it really simple with no matting behind. Here I did mat with that gold and rose gold specialty paper. Some of these papers are just beautiful. And I know you have some beautiful papers in your collection. So are you using them or are you saving them for later? Because if you're saving them, I want you to get some of that out and try some of these ideas. Then here's that one that I had cut into a quadrant. So I started with 1 piece of designer paper, cut it in half vertically, cut it in half horizontally, and attached it to this card. I just thought this turned out beautifully. This is one of my favorite paper packs right now. It's called Flowering Fields, and it has so many pretty floral images, most of them with tulips. Okay, so let's create one of these. Now, like I said, on these, the measurements are fairly important. If you want to create them so that you have those borders all nice and even, it can take some practice with your measurements. Also, when I was creating them, I didn't really know what measurements I needed. So I was playing around with it, trimming off little bits here and there to get those borders all nice and even. But for this one, we're not going to do that. Let me show you a trick for creating a panel card where you don't really have to worry about the measurements. Now we are going to mat this one, so it's going to be a little bit stepped up, but even with a mat, I'll show you how you can do it without worrying too much about the measurements. So here's a piece of paper. If you're curious what it measures 3 inches by 4 inches. And I want to trim this into some horizontal strips. So I'm not really sure what my measurements are going to be. I want to be able to get 3 out of this. So I'm going to go somewhere here a little bit over 1 inch. So I'm going to look. Now I know that's the 1 1/4 inch mark, but you can just be close if you're not exactly sure. Now, if you want to make sure this is the same and you do struggle with measurements, something you can do is lay this piece on top and then just line it up at that cutting track. So I'll cut that, and then I do want a 3rd one. That is going to cut just a tiny bit off the edge. Okay, so I have 3 pieces of this designer paper. Now, I do want, let's see, I do want to put these on in the order that there we go. So we have the peach scene created. I do want to do the same thing with this one. I want to cut the same dimensions with this cardstock. Now, if you are good with measurements and you can do the math, you know how much you have to trim off for the front piece from the size of the mat, go ahead and do this. But this is just kind of an easy way of doing it if you have a hard time with those measurements, like I said. Okay, so I have 3 pieces. These should be about 1 1/4 inches by 3 inches. That's what we started with. But like I said, that's not terribly important. These I want to lay on top of these. All I'm going to do is put them on my trimmer and just cut a little bit off. And I can tell, I think I got a little bit out of whack on my cutting. So we're going to do a little trimming. So I'm going to lay them on there. And I just want to lay it so that part of the piece is going to hang over my cutting track. I'm going to trim off a little bit. Now, since I have 3 stacked on top, I want to slide that cutting blade back and forth a few times and make sure these are detached before I move the rest of this. That way I could recut them if I needed to. Now we'll stack those back up, lay about the same amount over the edge over here past that cutting track. I'm not looking at where that measurement is on the left side. I just want to cut a little bit off. And now let's look and see how these line up. Looks like they will line up nicely and we'll have a little bit of a white border showing over the edge. So let's go ahead and put these together on a card. Now, as you'll notice, all of my samples filled up the entire card, the panels did. So the pieces I carefully measured to fill up the whole card, and they would look nice that way, but they don't have to do that. So if you have some designer paper and some smaller pieces that you want to use up, this is something you can do without worrying about those measurements too much, because it doesn't have to fill up the card. So we'll put these back in order the way they go, just like this. And we can put these on the card. There are so many different ways we could do this. So we could put these up the center if we want to. We could put them anywhere down here towards the right side. We could put them up here. These might even fit. They would fit this way. We could do them diagonally this way. There are a lot of different ways to create this. And I think I am going to do something like this. Now, if you want to pop these up using dimensionals, that would be a fun way to step this card up a little bit. I'm going to keep it simple and just attach them straight to the card. But think of the possibilities with this, with your paper and different dimensions, different matting, whether you keep it simple or add the mats, different tags, different layouts for your panels. You can really do a lot with this, and it's very, very simple. So when you're adding tags, if you keep the sentiment tags really simple like I did, what you can do to step that up a little bit is add a little bit of ribbon underneath. I had done this on 1 or 2 of the others as well. Here's one. I added 2 little strips of ribbon under that one, kind of laid on top of each other. Here's one I folded in half, similar to this one. But we'll put that down. We'll add some dimensionals to the back of this, and we'll have a really quick and easy panel card here. So thanks so much for watching along. I hope this gives you some ideas you can use in your craft area. I really appreciate you being here. You can find links to the products I used in the description below, as well as a link to my site for all of the measurements and, like I said, the paper packs I used if you see one that you really love. Hope you have a blessed day. I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.